Rejecting and replacing is the quickest way for you to manifest more money. In fact, to manifest anything in your life, you need to begin at once to reject anything that the old version of you, the old identity, continually announces to you whenever you look at your bank account, or maybe you have the lack of a relationship, or possibly your weight. You have to get into the habit of disciplining the mind to only think in a certain way. And this certain way is to only think truth, the truth of what you want to make happen in your life. I want to share a true story of how I manifested money when I was broke, and exactly what I did to quieten down the ego, the old version of me, who was programmed, should I say, by a lot of mental junk to do with money. You see, I grew up in a home where my father had a scarcity mindset. And of course, this was programmed into him not only by his parents, but by his environment. My father grew up in the Depression, and he grew up in London during the war. And of course, everything was tough. Everything was on rations. And so he was programmed to only think lack and limited thoughts about money. Like, go carefully, it's going to run out. We're going to have to make ends meet. I mean, money's so hard to make. We've got to hold on to it. Money doesn't grow on trees. So I grew up in a household where my father regurgitated with repetition these thoughts about money day in, day out. I remember he used to pay my mother an allowance, and I remember he'd pay her 85 Australian dollars a week to have to feed 4 kids and 2 adults, himself and of course my mum. And of course my mum found it really hard, as she would say, to make ends meet. So growing up in that household, it was always, the subject of money was so loaded with excited misery. It was so loaded with hardship and struggle, right? And yet we lived so abundantly in the right suburb with the 2 cars, yet behind closed doors, it was the complete opposite. Can you relate? So this mental junk has in the past been, this pattern of thinking about money has perpetuated in all areas of my life. Even though I've earned a great income, I still have my dad's voice. I can hear him: go carefully, spend your money wisely. Oh, you really should think about that. So that sort of program in the past used to run the show until I did the following. And I'm going to tell you, you can change your relationship with money just from listening to what I'm about to tell you. And it all is about rejecting and replacing. Really, what you need to do is neutralize those old thoughts with new thoughts about money. Okay, here it goes. So this is the story. During COVID, I had just moved to Vegas, and as we all know, it was interesting times, very interesting times. And I was a business owner, and I was having trouble attracting clients. And remember, my self-image was very different then. My identity was different then to what it is today, because I've done a lot of the work to become the product of the product, right? So I remember I was barely getting by. I could hear my dad's voice, and of course I was, my subconscious mind was producing the environment that I had just lived in, okay? And so rent was coming up, oh my goodness, and I was so worried about how am I going to pay. I had just moved to Vegas and I was about to get an eviction notice, and I was like, what the? And then I realized that actually this story I was telling myself, it didn't even belong to me. It belonged to my father, and the story was a conglomerate of his thinking, and it was perpetuating the same old circumstances that I grew up with, right? As within, so without. And so the eviction notice was about to be served. So what I did was I went on a rampage for 2 weeks, day in, day out. I mean, I was a woman possessed. So every time I would think, how are you going to pay the rent? Oh my God, right? Money's running out. All hell's going to break loose. Oh my God, I'm going to have to sell the car. Oh my God, I'm going to end up on the streets. All of the stinking thinking came up, and it got really loud. And so I would neutralize those thoughts by saying, get out of here, reject it, get out of here. No, God is the source of my supply, and God is never late. God provides richly for me now. I have more than enough money to pay for everything, all my expenses easily. I just went on this rampage. I think the 3 I used the most was, God is the source of my supply, God provides richly for me now, and God is never late. And then I would feel the peace come over me, and then I knew God had taken over. Remember that I had convinced myself of this new truth, because remember, we all are God. We really are one with the omnipresence, okay? And so I kept saying this, and then the old thinking would come up, right? How are you going to pay it? Oh my God. And then I'd go, cancel. I'd neutralize it by, first of all, becoming aware of those thoughts. Secondly, deciding in that moment, no, this is not me. This is my Father. No, I am the rich child of a loving Father, and my Father loves prospering me. No. And then I'd go into the other affirmations, which were more positive, uplifting, and truth, for goodness sake. Truth, right? And I kept saying that, no, every day my wealth is increasing. I kept saying that there's always enough money. I kept saying, God is the source of my supply. God provides richly for me now. He's never late. So I kept saying this, and the more I said this, that inner dialogue started to die, started to wilt and go away. And of course, I started to feel more at peace and more hopeful and confident that God would save the day. And I had to really do this for 2 weeks. It was the hardest 2 weeks of my life. I felt sick. I thought like I was going to pass out. I thought I was literally going to die. But really what was dying was the old version of myself. This version that had been programmed inside of me that didn't even belong to me. It was my father's identity. And then I passed the persistent test, and I went, and I was still doing service. I went and gave a talk to a group of real estate agents, and suddenly 2 people signed up like that, and instantly within a day I made over $16,000 paid in full. I made it in one day, but I had to go through, as they say, the dark night of the soul. I had to go through that. But on the other side of that, because I persisted, I got rewarded. The truth came true that God did supply my needs, and there was a surplus, and it wasn't too late. I wasn't put out on the streets, right? Sure, I got served the eviction notice, but within a week I had paid in full and some, of course, to continue to stay. That's way back then in that form of accommodation. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Put those comments down below, exactly what I've just told you, because when you start to say it or repeat it back, you're actually reinforcing these ideas back into you. And if you have any other thoughts, maybe, of what's worked for you to turn a situation around, then please feel free to leave it below. Because remember, we all deserve to be rich, happy, and successful. And my way isn't just the only way. There are many other formulas you can use to start to, well, be in the receivership of every day that your wealth is increasing. Bye for now.